Well, hello and welcome back. And the bike is in the stand because we are getting some amazingly warm weather here in Alberta. And it almost looks like the trails are going to be dry and ready to ride in a few weeks, which is amazing considering that it's still prime ski touring season. That said, if you watched the second video that came out of my Bellingham trip, you know that I had a huge case on a run called Pump Track. There was a step down jump. It was the first time I was riding it. I only hit it just the once. And it wasn't just that I cased, it's that I bottomed out really hard. And part of the reason being is that transition, for pretty well all their bikes, as is my understanding, recommend using a progressive air canister for your shock. That's based on sort of the leverage ratio of the suspension kinematics. However, when I built up this bike, because it is a custom build, and I really wanted the Shox Super Deluxe, I think it's called the RL, oh my gosh, I'll put it in the bottom. Nevertheless, it's the one that has both the low speed and the high speed compression with the pedal assist and the rebound. So at the time, and still at present, the only shock available is one with a linear can. Now, I was just more interested in getting it and riding it. It was kind of advised to me to sort of, ride it in its, current iteration first, see how I think, because all things considered, some people actually do throw linear coil shocks on their transition bikes. So it's not the first time a linear shock has been put on a transition bike. However, that case was enough to solidify that I need a lot more bottom out resistance. So what we're going to do today is we are going to add volume spacers to this rear shock. It's also worth mentioning for this sort of 2023 style shocks that this one is, you have two different types of spacers. Traditionally, it was just one spacer that managed the progressivity in the sort of compression, but you also now have the ability to adjust the negative air chamber. Now, I'm not a suspension expert by any means, but reading through the shop manual for this particular shock, adding the negative volume spacers increases your mid-stroke support. So I'm not going to be touching that today, the one change at a time. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to compensate until I can actually get a progressive can on here, which again is what Transition recommends. So we're going to be adding all of the volume spacers available. There should already be one in there. We're going to be adding 3 more for a total of 4 volume spacers in the actual shock. And I have contacted Shox. I'm just waiting on a reply. But what I've asked them is, if we have 4 volume spacers in this shock, how does that actually compare in terms of progressiveness to the progressive can? So I kind of have a theory that the linear with all 4 might be equivalent to the progressive with 0 or maybe even 1 volume spacer in it. So once I hear back, I will add that down below right here. For now though, I'm going to grab my shock pump. I'm going to drain out the air. The shop manual does say that you can just use a small hex wrench, but bleed it slowly. I'd rather do it more controlled because I'm not an expert at it, and bleed it out. So let's do that now. So one thing the manual did actually say that I haven't seen mentioned in any other video, and it might be because it's sort of unique to this 23 shock, is they said, set all of your parameters to the lowest. So for this one, we're going to go to, -2 on the low speed compression. We're going to make sure that the shock is in its open, not the pedal setting. And we're going to grab, I think it's a 2.5 or a 3 mil. And we're also going to adjust down the high speed compression to its lowest setting. They made mention, obviously, just count the number of clicks so that you can restore that setting. 1, 2, so now we should be at the lowest, yep, for the high speed. And just for good measure, I'm going to back out the rebound, which I think is already on the slow. I like a really slow rebound, so yeah, that's the slowest. Like I said, I like a really slow rebound. I find that I don't get bucked off the lips of jumps with a slow rebound. All right, so from here we will remove the Schrader cap, if I can get my fingers in there. Oh, that's tight. Oh, it's on there quite firm too. There she comes. We'll set that aside and attach the shock pump here. So I'm using a Shox digital shock pump. I do believe that it is simply just a branded digital shock pump that seems to be used across Fox, Shox, Bontrager, etc. Nevertheless. So we have it set currently to 151 PSI, which is consistent with body weight for me. But we're going to go ahead and just purge that out. There we go. Back that off. Now, one tool that I don't have with me today, because quite simply I forgot, is a strap wrench. But I'm going to see if I can do it just based on hand grip here. Again, it does recommend in the manual to use a strap wrench, which I have, and I 100% forgot to bring home for this job, but we are making some slow but steady progress here. There happens to be really good access on this Transition Scout. There it goes. So now it's open and we can just slide it down. There we go. So that it's in its furthest down position. And all we're doing is just trying to gain access here. So if we take a look up, we can see this gray bit here. And this we're just going to slide down. So we can see looking up into the actual shock body itself, this is the one bottomless token that comes installed from factory. And there is like I'll call it a bridge that faces the reservoir. And that's how we want to orient the new bottomless tokens. So we're just going to go ahead and install 3 more up there. So before we proceed, I just wanted to take a moment to actually show you what these bottomless tokens and the negative volume token actually look like. So these are the bottomless tokens here. They are thin and flat, and it's worth mentioning that it says when you install it, it wants the tabbed side facing towards the air valve. So I suspect for my application, this is referencing the tabbed side, and this is going to be towards the actual air valve. I also wanted to point out this one here. This is the negative volume token. And what this will do is it will, according to the service manual, increase mid-stroke support. Now, what does that mean? As your suspension is compressing through, I believe some bikes have a really high leverage ratio off the go. And so the middle of the travel where you want to be existing for the majority of your riding, if let's say the leverage ratio is so high that it's pushing through that really quickly and you're ending up and you're riding a lot deeper in that suspension travel, so you actually effectively have less suspension travel to work with, you can install one of these negative volume tokens to then increase that mid-stroke support and ride closer to the middle portion of the shock stroke. At least that's how I understand it. If I have that wrong, please let me know down below. Again, I'm not an expert at it. This is just based on my personal understanding. So like I said, before I installed it, I just wanted to take a point to show you kind of the difference between the bottomless tokens, which is going to increase the progressiveness, and the negative volume token. All right, so I've grabbed myself one of the tokens here, and actually it looks like I have that wrong. Oh, I see why. So it's actually not the thick side, it's the thinner side that doesn't have the tab. I don't know why they call it the tab side. That actually goes towards the valve, because you can actually see there's a valve core. It looks to be just like a standard valve core that you'd see in any sort of automotive application, or even the Presta valve. And that sticks into the actual air chamber. So if you were to install this side towards the actual air valve, it's going to contact it and interfere. So you want the side here away from it. So we're going to come in from behind. Actually, maybe we can start by clipping it on. I wasn't expecting as much resistance to get these on, but such is life. Oops, went ahead and dropped that already. I'm curious, having never done this before, how this is actually going to, if it's even going to stay up there on its own, because again, we're going to install 3 more. So let's see if it's going to stay up there. There we go. So there is lots of room. So there's the shaft here, the Shox shaft, and then there's a wider, call it a collar. And that's, there's a bit of resistance when you're inserting the token, but yeah, it's actually pretty good. So let's do that 2 more times. Figure out an easy way to get this on one side before the other. Around that collar at the top, and just stack them one on top of the other. One more. So once more, you can install up to 4 bottomless tokens. We had 1 in there already. This is going to be the 4th one that we're installing just now. There's got to be an easier way to get these over the shaft. I must be making this more difficult on myself. Get that orientation around the collar. Nice click. All right, I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so having a look on the inside, we can see again, this is the actual valve here, and you can see that little silver bit extending just onto the inside. That's the actual valve core, and that's why we have the thicker side located opposite of it. You can also see the sort of the black collar that I'm calling it up here at the top where it's thicker, and it sort of, I found it best if you had 2 fingers, you could just sort of pop the spacer on. It'll sort of, you know, widen up a little bit. So it does actually hold there under its own strength. So that's really nice to see. So from here, we're just going to go ahead and slide the actual air can back up in place. There we go. I could hear some air sort of purge out a little bit while I was doing that. So I don't know if that was just something equalizing on the inside of the shock, maybe from like the negative to the positive volume or something. But we'll just go ahead and tighten this up. So once more, they had rise a strap wrench. I just have like a Canadian Tire Mastercraft. It was like a 3-piece, I think. And what it is, it's like a rubber strap that goes around, and then it kind of connects onto itself and tightens up, kind of like a, I think they call it chain wrenches, but obviously rubber, so it, you know, doesn't damage the shock body itself. So you can see it pretty well stop right there. Now it was quite tight to begin with, so I'm gonna do my best here to actually give it as much as I can, but I'm reasonably satisfied with that. Just going to be kind of a repeat of the same processes. So we'll attach our nice, again, give you a nice shot of this. This is the digital shock pump that I wanted to feature in my gift ideas for mountain bikers video, but they actually didn't have any in stock at the time. But yeah, I think for the mountain bike enthusiast, you know, it's always nice to have the matching brand, or, you know, if Transition made one, I'm sure people would, you know, love to have that. There we go. And we are gonna bring this up to 151 PSI, which is where it was when I started. Again, just changing one thing at a time. Try to simplify the actual process here. Now, I did consult the actual service manual, and I'm not aware of any sort of, like equalization you have to do, which I've sort of seen in reference to, pulling forks apart and whatnot. So, in fact, it doesn't even give any instruction on, putting everything back together. It just simply gives you the disassembly instructions. If it's in there, I missed it. And hopefully a helpful viewer below, but this is not really meant as an instructional video, just cool opportunity to talk about the suspension and stuff, which actually maybe is a good segue. So, I've mentioned this before in the past when I did my introducing video. I'll mention it here as well. For me, it was really important to have the smaller air volume that the Super Deluxe delivers, as opposed to the Fox Float X2, which originally came on this bike. But also to have something with both high and low speed compression adjustment. 150, 151. All right. The reason being is low speed compression, which is, what you'd mostly find on standard Shox and even in some automotive applications. Low speed doesn't really, in my opinion, it's not the main factor that's going to, impact performance. The reason being is you can think of low speed as just adding thicker oil or thinner oil, or increasing or decreasing the temperature. It's like changing the viscosity, essentially. So if you've ever, for us Canadians, we know all about this, but when you get up on a really cold winter morning and you go to drive to work, your brake pedal, is going to be really firm because the brake fluid on the inside is really, really viscous. That is essentially low speed compression. You're just changing, the ability for it to move under its, slow speeds. That's why it's called low speed. High speed, when you get the large impact that you need actual dampening for, that's your high speed. And so to not have that adjustment is, or at least externally adjustable, is really kind of a missing feature. That's where you're going to notice a lot of your actual true dampening adjustment, that's the high speed. That's when you hit a bump and you want to determine whether it's going to use, be really soft and use more of the suspension, or be really firm. A lot of that's going to come down to personal preference or objectives, that sort of thing. I tend to prefer mine, in the middle / softer. I like to use the suspension that I have available, but I want it to ramp up at the end. So I want to use it all, but I want it to give me that bottomless feeling, which is why we just installed an additional 3 bottomless tokens, and when available, we'll get the progressive air canister. I think high speed is just as important as rebound, because rebound is what's going to determine, if it's going to buck you off the lip of a jump, or if you're in kind of more of like a racing situation where you'd want a faster rebound to kind of keep up with the chatter. You'd want to open up your shock a little bit more. But given my style of riding, I'd rather use that suspension, not get bucked over, because I'm not worried about sort of racing the clock. Moreover, I find it to, at least with 140 millimeters in the back, I don't think that it packs up, meaning, if you have a really slow rebound, as I do here, if you're going through multiple consecutive impacts, where, each impact, it's, going through that travel because the rebound is so slow, I don't find that to be the case. This is a slow rebound is what I prefer. So let's go ahead and adjust the low speed back into its middle position. We'll grab our 3 mil and we will go into the -1 position on the high speed compression. Again, these are adjustments that I'll be playing around with this spring, actually, and doing some sort of back-to-back testing on sections of trail, just to see, what I think about that and be able to convey that to you guys. So there we have it. That is one tuned rear suspension. Can't say that I'm noticing a huge difference. It's going to be, you know, more toward the end of the travel anyways. But I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found it entertaining, maybe informative. Again, not an expert. Do all of this, you know, at your own caution. If you're going to, you know, install and play around with volume reducers and spacers and progressivity and all that stuff, definitely check out, I've got my laptop or iPad behind the camera. Check out Ceram's website. Just go to Google. You can find the service manual there. They're actually really well written, lots of good pictures. So yeah, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable now to get out and go hit the trails. This spring we'll kind of work on dialing everything in, you know, one little bit at a time. But in the meanwhile, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions whatsoever about anything you've seen here, leave it in the comments down below. I'll try to get you an answer. If not, hopefully other viewers might be able to chime in. In the meanwhile, yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you appreciated the studio lighting and new lavalier microphone, please give this video a like. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you like what we're doing and you're excited to see where we go this summer on the Scouting the West series, then be sure to consider subscribing and sticking around. Until then, thank you very much for watching. You take care, and bye for now.